Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Very happy to have back on our friend Rula Jebreal, award-winning journalist, specialized in foreign affairs, author. In fact, she's got an author of book in the past, but a new book that's doing great in Europe and translated into English about what's going on in Gaza. And I look forward to reading that book. Also, was at one point a visiting professor at University of Miami, and my friend. Nice to see you, Rula.
Great to see you, Dean, and thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Look, let's talk for a second about that. I feel guilty all the time that I'm not doing enough to help the people of Gaza. Like when I see the images, and I had my friends on who have family, and got my friend Hala Hijazi was on earlier this week, yesterday, in
Mm,
fact. She's lost 100 family members. I talked to Hani, um, who's with the UN Relief Works Agency. He's lost
yeah.
100 family members. Two of his brothers have been killed. This is the worst.
Mhm.
I've never seen this much horror, and it's about to get worse. And the world does nothing but say a few things here and there. This is horrific.
Look, Dean, every Palestinian that I know, every woman, man, is now in a state of shock. We're all heartbroken. We all feel guilty. It's a survival guilt. I mean, I have friends who lost their entire families, and I'm in touch with them. They live in Europe, outside, and every day we have these chat groups where we talk about how the world, not only the Israelis don't see us as human beings, how
Hmm.
the world decide that Israel has the right to sacrifice us, to exterminate us, and we're being lectured in the media about how the victims are actually guilty. Where I never seen in my lifetime where the victims are blamed for their own extermination. And there's something else that really is makes me not only angry, makes me so disappointed with the whole rule-based international order, Western democracy. They know, they understand what's happening in Gaza. They know exactly the facts. Israel told them over and again what they're going to do. Yet they kept repeating the lie that the stated goals were to liberate the hostages and basically decimate Hamas. None of these goals were achieved, by the way, because the main goal was never to liberate the hostages or to dismantle only Hamas. Hamas itself issued in writing basically two letters telling the Israelis and the international community we're willing to relinquish power, we're willing to release all the hostages if you end the war. Israel decided and chose to continue its genocide, knowing they will basically exterminate the Palestinians, but also they will sacrifice their own hostages. This is unprecedented, and we're still listening to people who keep denying and justifying what we all see with our own eyes and never seen the use of starvation as a weapon of extermination being explained as a necessary measure somehow when it is obvious that you have soldiers after soldiers talking openly about how this is another instrument to complete the genocide.
And to that point, now, just earlier today, the Israeli government voted to expand the war by taking control of Gaza. And even the Israeli military chief of staff pushed back against his idea, saying this is not a good idea. We don't have the weapons, the means, the troops are tired, and they're not sure if they can achieve the goals. But Netanyahu's political choices dictate this is going to happen now. So, what do you think the real world impact will be if they take control of Gaza? And obviously, after that, they want to take control of whatever is left. But what do you think? How will this play out?
Well, as reported by many Israeli journalists, they want to basically. What I think this phase is the final phase of the genocide. This is a phase where Israel takes control of very densely populated, centers, areas. Yes, they took part of the northern Gaza. We don't know anything about northern Gaza, so we're talking now about the south. And now they just finished their operation Gideon Chariots, which was supposed to basically try to eliminate Hamas from these areas that are densely populated. You have almost 2 million people in a densely populated areas that were all pushed in the north, in basically in the south.
Hmm.
Apologies, all pushed. And now Israel is saying we are going to enter these areas. This is going to be the most violent, bloody phase because they will enter center to center, refugee camp to refugee camp, and they will try to push people in what Barak Rabid called the center camp It's a concentration camp. So either they push you to the concentration camp and use food basically as a bait, or if you stay outside the concentration camp, you're going to be deemed a Hamas or a militant and you're going to be exterminated. The choices are clear. We're going to herd the Palestinians into those camps with bombs, with missiles, with bullets. And then anybody that doesn't enter those camps where nobody will be allowed to exit, and they will use food like traps to
Hmm.
kill people, more and more people. And if you don't enter these concentration camps that the minister, the foreign minister Katz was bragging about, and also the defense minister, they were bragging about this concentration camp. And then if you don't enter that, anybody outside. So imagine if you have a crippled parent, or imagine if you have a woman who with children who stayed outside the camp. Anybody outside the camp will be annihilated, exterminated. This is going to be whatever we've seen in the last 2 years, which is killing children, sniping children, bombing hospital, torturing and murdering doctors, bombing to oblivion and burning alive people in refugee camps. This is going to be nothing compared to what we are going to see if Israel moves into this phase where total extermination. And I think it will, I mean, I truly believe that if Europe had imposed economic sanctions and an arms embargo, Europe is the first trading partner with Israel. If they imposed that, if America had imposed an arms embargo and used every leverage to stop the war, this war and this genocide
Sure.
would have ended. But they refused to do it because they continue to treat Israel as the country that is doing the dirty job for them. It's what I believe the Chancellor of Germany said, Israel is doing the dirty job for us. And somebody in Austria yesterday, I believe he said, and also another politician in Sweden said, well, we will be all grateful to Israel. Well, you will be grateful for a genocide. You will be seen by generations after generation that you watched the Holocaust happening in our lifetime and you allowed it to happen. Not only allowed it to happen, you aided it and abetted
Right.
it with weapons, with basically financed it, bankrolled it, and defended it and justified it. I never in my lifetime thought we will be watching the destruction of European and American image as country who promote democracy and lecture third world countries about human rights and animal rights and women's rights, and then turn around and arm a country that is committing genocide and then justifying it, saying, well, like Donald Trump did, well, saying, yeah, I refer to Israel on this, as if I imagine a president saying, I refer to Milosevic in this. It's up to Milosevic if he
Right.
exterminate people or not. It's up to Putin if he take out all of Ukraine and basically kill every Ukrainian. Well, it's not up to them. It is never
It's
up to them. And if Israel wants to destroy itself and commit suicide, I am stunned by the fact that a lot of these countries wants to jump in with them.
It's but one thing, look, we had Europe today criticizing Keir Starmer, but Chancellor of Germany actually did something that meaningful. Says until further notice, his country will not export military equipment that could be used in
About
Gaza,
time.
and
It
it is
was
about
about
time.
time, but also it's an admission they've been basically sending weapons for the last 2 years.
Right.
Italy and Germany, the two countries that carried the genocide against the Jews 80 years ago, are the countries that continue to resist using any leverage and putting any pressure on Israel and continue to send weapons. The Italian government own a company called Leonardo, and they continue to send weapons to Italy. Giorgia Meloni, who knows that she is leading a government of neo-fascists, she basically had this alliance, an unspoken rule with the fascists in Israel, and decided, you will not call me a fascist and call me out on the fact that I love Mussolini, I admire Mussolini, and I am a fascist if I support you. This is where we are at in this moment. They're using the excuse that they supported basically the Holocaust 80 years ago to justify and normalize the Holocaust in our lifetime.
I'm chatting with our friend Rula Jebreal, foreign policy activist and expert. So the Israeli cabinet today also approved 5 principles for ending the war, and I want to get your reaction to two of them that really jumped out at me. One are demilitarization, the release of the hostages, but Israeli security control over the enclave, and establishment of an alternative civilian administration that involves neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. So not even the PA. So you're going to say, so who's going to? And I think it's interesting because Netanyahu said yesterday, and it jumped out at me on the Fox News interview, we're not going to keep the land. We're going to turn it over to the Arabs. He didn't say Palestinians.
Which Arabs?
That's
I
exactly
mean,
what's going on here. So
I
we don't
mean,
know
he's the
what
one
he's
that,
meaning by this.
oh, he means probably, he's the one that's arming ISIS groups in this moment to go and loot the aid. So, and when the crown prince of Saudi Arabia talked about establishing a Palestinian state, recognition of Israel in exchange of Palestinian state, he said, if you want the Palestinian, you can take them into Saudi Arabia. So he's not serious. He's lying to justify this final stage where they will take over. Uh, Dean, I know for a fact that there are still designs for the next settlements in Gaza. The budget has been established. What kind of settlements? People are already from Israel touring the areas where they will be building settlements on top of mass graves of children. We know for a fact that minister after minister of this government went last week to the West Bank, stood in front of basically took a picture also with Mike Johnson, where behind it it's there's a writing on the wall: "Kill all Arabs, death to Arabs." We know for a fact that these people, the fanatical messianic part of this government that is now the Kahanis part that is in charge of everything, they have the next plan in place. And the next plan is resettle Gaza with colonize Gaza with settlements that are purely Jewish. Gaza is only the first phase, by the way. After they exterminate millions of Palestinians or put the remaining one in concentration camp, which is to control the demographics so they can have a Jewish supremacist state. A Jewish majority state cannot exist between the river and the sea with 7 million Palestinians and 7 million Israeli. So they will start with Gaza, eliminate those. But what's next will be the West Bank. Mark my words, when they will finish with Gaza and the world will allow them to finish with Gaza, they're coming after our people in the West Bank. And not
Yep.
only that, in East Jerusalem. My entire family lives in East Jerusalem, in Haifa, in other places. They're going to exterminate. No Palestinian is safe under this genocidal regime in Israel. No Palestinian, regardless where you live, whether you live in Gaza or Ramallah or Jenin or Tulkarem or Haifa or Nablus, nowhere.
And you mentioned the death to Arabs in Hen's play. There's and Rula knows Hend Ayub, my Hend. Well, in her play, she has images and the chant of Mavet La'aravim, which is death to Arabs,
Yeah,
and that's the chant. That's the soundtrack of the life of Palestinian in living in Israel. And it's part of the goal of this right wing administration. Mike Johnson, the speaker, said to the settler group, this right wing, way out there group, that Judea Samaria, which is their way of saying the West Bank, it's rightfully owned by the Jews. And this is unbelievable. There are Christians living in the West Bank that he is supporting the oppression and
yeah,
occupation and killing of his own people. This
yeah.
is unreal to hear this.
Well, this is Christian Zionism, which I believe we need sometimes to explore the root and also the whole propaganda and also the genocidal theme of it. The rapture, which Mike Huckabee and many others believe in,
Mm-hmm.
that the Jews have all to be there so they can either convert or be killed. So, I mean, the whole thing is beyond fanatical. I mean, we're talking about ISIS when we have these kind of guys. Huckabee went yesterday, the ambassador to Israel, went on Fox News and he said there's nobody is getting killed in the 8 sites in the
Mm-hmm.
GHF, so the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. It's a lie. You know why it's a lie? We know this from videos. We know this from video posted also by Israeli soldiers and by American contractors that 1,500 people were killed between May and July on these sites. We know from Anthony Aguilar that the IDF has been targeting and sniping children like Amir, who was 10 years old, simply because Amir got very close to these contractors, talked to them, and then when he was exiting, if you don't exit in time, if you have 3 seconds before you exit from the gate, they will start shooting on you. To basically control the crowd, they're using Merkava tanks. They're shooting through tanks. They're shooting lively bullets into the crowds. This Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is masquerading basically the extermination theory. They first get rid of the United Nations that was distributing aid, and it was
Hmm.
not even sufficient. The UN had 400 distribution sites. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has four. Only three of those four is functioning. And in those three, they keep shooting at people and give them some beans and some rice. But above all, they've been giving them bullets, shooting at them after destroying all the hospitals and preventing aid from arriving. What is happening today in Gaza is beyond famine. It's starvation, where people
Yep.
well, it's not only food they need medication, they need electrolyte, they need water, they need medication because their body cannot absorb nutrition anymore. And this is where Israel wants them to be. This is exactly what Elian Giora, the general, bragged about in an op-ed December 2023 in a newspaper in Israel, Yahudot Ahronot. This is exactly where they want the Palestinians to be.
And I went through that on the show. I think it was last week about the general's plan. This has been
Yes,
there's not to starve the people of Gaza, and they'll say, "Well, we're going to just starve Hamas." You can't just starve Hamas. If you're starving 2 million people because one small a percentage of that, a small percentage, are Hamas militants, but they don't care because they don't view the Palestinians as human beings. We've been
exactly.
so dehumanized. I had Professor Omar Bartov on from Brown University a little over a week ago, talked about the goal of Israel now in the West Bank in Gaza is to make it uninhabitable. And he
Yes,
went through in detail how Israel would move the population out and then come in and flatten the area. And then when people come back, there's nothing to live in many of the places. And Netanyahu yesterday on Fox News was asked about the Israeli military blowing up houses and apartments and mosques and churches, and he said, "No, it's Hamas. They booby trap everything." That he literally said. I went and watched the clip again today. He said, "No, it's not us. They booby trap it. So we come in
yeah,
and then everything blows up because they want to kill." It's like Hamas has that kind of technology and to
of
blow up
course
all these
not.
buildings. This is done by huge armaments, like the bombs that we give for the planes and the other things. But what's your reaction that Netanyahu saying that it's all because of Hamas they booby trapped the buildings?
Well, first of all, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of Israeli soldiers themselves blowing up entire buildings like Al Asra University, like part of the Shifa hospitals, like homes. We know for a fact because those Israeli soldiers have been providing us on social media of these videos where themselves blow up these infrastructure. Not only that, do you remember the last um, cancer hospital in Gaza? Israel invaded the hospital, kicked out everybody, arrested basically the medics. We have 500 medics who've been killed, by the way, in Gaza, and
Mm-hmm.
and 1,800 paramedics who were killed in Gaza. Many of those killed while being interrogated, being tortured and raped in Israeli dungeons, like Adnan al-Bursh and many others. So what they do, they took the hospital, occupied the hospital for 1 year. And then after 1 year, when the military wanted to retreat from that area to go another area, the IDF, they blew up the whole hospital, blew it up and said Hamas. The lies are, and you know what bothers me about Netanyahu's lies and the Israeli lies, it's not that they keep lying, but they keep being laundered and repeated and propagated as declaration of a normal country in our press media. They don't get examined. And not only because journalists are not on the ground, which is also that
Mm-hmm.
is premeditated, is a choice of Netanyahu to keep blackout over Gaza. But we have proof because the soldiers themselves showed us, and Palestinian journalists risk their lives daily to document the extermination, the massacre, the obliteration, annihilation of entire Gaza. But also, we have the plans. So I keep insisting about the complicity of our media and keep printing or
Mm-hmm.
interviewing these criminals without stating the facts, or at least show Netanyahu like, okay, you said it's Hamas. Let me show you the Israeli soldier who are blowing up the what about this hospital? What about that
Yeah.
hospital? What about that school? What about that refugee camps? I think the fact that our media is not doing that and they're still scared to do that, and they keep calling the occupation, illegal occupation of Gaza as taking control. When are we going to wake up and understand that it's also the media reputation on the line? They're being discredited in this moment, and they will be deemed as, I'm sorry to say that, and I feel bad even to say that, if you are indirectly complicit in propagating the narrative that very similar to Radio Rwanda. During the genocide in Rwanda, a lot of
Hmm.
people, especially journalists and propagandists, were complicit and were indicted in the end. Our media is failing us. It's failing in a very clear way because they continue to defer to Israel when Israel continue to lie blatantly.
And next, we've seen, you mentioned the West Bank earlier. I wanted to pivot to that. We've had two U.S. citizens killed by settlers in the last month, two. And it gets a little press in the U.S., but a teeny. These are Americans killed there by settlers. And the guy who just killed a U.S. citizen, he was put in house arrest for a day and then let go. They don't suffer any consequence because,
Nothing.
again, our lives don't matter. I mean, right now, my family in the West Bank in Batir, it's a small town right outside of Bethlehem. The settlers are trying to drive my family from their land today in
Yes.
2025. They're that emboldened now. My family's been there for generations. They're there. They took my grandmother's land, uh, you know, 20, 30 years ago. Now they
Yeah.
want to come back for everything else.
Listen, it's so clear that the Americans care about American lives, including presidents, care about when they're killed by the right enemy, but when they're killed by allies, in the case of Shireen Abu Akleh, of many others, not only they don't care, they basically, they continue to supply the weapons. Our American citizens are being killed with American weapons by America's first ally, number one ally. And if this doesn't shake you, it should. And everybody that voted to send weapon to Israel, I hope they will never be voted in office ever again. There's
I
an
hope so.
awakening in this moment. And I'm
Hmm.
telling you, if in 2028, the next primary is Democratic primary, but not only that, the next presidential election, I compare it to the end of slavery in this country. Anybody that supported that institution was
Hmm.
destroyed politically. And it's the same with the genocide in Gaza. This is a pivotal, crucial moment. Anybody that support that genocide directly and indirectly will be crushed in the primary and will be eliminated because people are, and I am stunned that for the first time in my life, I don't know if it's happening to you, I keep reading Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I cannot believe that she is on the right side of history. And Democrats are still, blaming Palestinians and trying to
Well,
justify the disgusting horrors that Israel is unleashing against us. I mean, I don't like her racism or her conspiracy theory or whatever, but on this issue,
I,
the far right has been leading the way
it's
in a
weird.
in a in a. It's really what a moment in time.
And to that point, Steve Bannon this morning earlier said that if if Netanyahu goes into Gaza, then he's going to lose all of MAGA. But MAGA's already been peeling away, and there's different reasons. I mean, some of them are anti-Semites, right? That's a part.
Yeah,
Some of them are really isolationists, and they know that if Israel goes into Gaza, then the U.S. is going into Gaza because our
they
more
don't
of our
want
weapons go there,
American
right?
exactly.
So
They don't
they're
want
like,
Americans to die in
where's this going? So
Gaza.
there's all weird things here. I'm in San Francisco talking to so many Palestinians. We've had after Hen show, before, after, chatted with them. And a lot of them brought up the same point you did. How is Marjorie Taylor Greene making sense of this issue? Like, they hate her.
Yeah,
They're like, she's awful. She hates Muslims. She's a horrible
yeah.
anti-Muslim bigot. But she doesn't view it through that prism. It's a weird, different prism that they're looking at. But the I'm concerned. So, I mean, what do you think? Are you heartened in any way by the shift in public opinion? Overall, Americans, two-thirds think the Netanyahu war is wrong now. A Gallup poll among Democrats, it's way off the charts. And independents, it's off the charts as well. Opposition, it's still Republicans generally siding with it. But do you think we're going to hit a pivotal political shift in America that could end up changing policy?
Look, it will take time, but we have 4 years, and time, and things are happening very rapidly, Dean, because of social media. But I think I talked to Anthony Aguilar yesterday for an
Good.
interview I did for an Italian media, and when he talked about what will the world will see when we uncover the horrors, he said there will be a reckoning when the world see for the first time the magnitude, the depravity of the crimes, the intensity of the bombardment, but also how do we honestly allow in our lifetime for an entire population to be exterminated, annihilated, and totally, genocided. I think it will have a blow. I believe we've seen only 20%. When we'll start seeing 50, 60%, I think it will be cathartic. I believe
Uh,
that. And I saw it happening in the past in a different scale in other areas. But in this case, you have the overwhelming majority of young Americans progressive
Yeah.
independents who are horrified that America is bankrolling, financing, and arming this genocide. But not only that, enabling this genocide. And I think they understand that not only they don't want to die for Israel, they don't want to finance this depravity and this disgusting atrocity. Because if you don't have housing here, proper housing, proper healthcare, it's because you're sending trillions of dollars to a country that's committing genocide. If you don't have basically a decent standard of living, because the lobbyists decided that America is not America first, but Israel first. But because we're ruled by these mega billionaires who dictate on Trump what to do when it comes to foreign policy. You know what
Hmm.
scared me the most? That nobody reported about it except Glenn Greenwald, an Israeli journalist who write for the Times of Israel, basically said publicly, said, nobody cared about Epstein, but we had some receipts in Israel. And as soon as Trump criticized Netanyahu, we start leaking the receipts. And oh boy.
Oh,
And
wow.
I when I read it 3 times, he wrote it in Hebrew in his blog. And I read it 3 times and I thought, yeah, that is plausible. That I don't know if Trump is blackmailed. I have no idea. He might be blackmailed. If Epstein really was a secret agent for a genocidal state, then it makes sense that they would use that leverage to basically bully and blackmail the most powerful man on earth, directly and indirectly. It's plausible. I don't have the
Certainly.
facts, but it is plausible. But another thing, when Trump came to office, he promised a lot of Americans, and a lot of Americans were duped into voting for him, thinking there will never be another war. And one of the things where I respect actually um, the right on this, whether Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, and others, I actually, I respect the fact that they are holding his feet to the fire and saying, this is what you promised, but you're delivering something else. And
Yeah.
I wish we did that with Biden. I wish we did that with Kamala Harris. When we tried to do it, they were kicked out of the convention. And here we are.
I hear you, my friend Rula. Rula, thank you for making time. And
Thank
I
you.
know you've been on your book tour, the book tour, and I look forward to reading in English. It's challenging times. If people want to follow your work, what's the best place they can go?
To Rula Jebreal, whether Facebook or Instagram or X, anywhere they want.
All right, my friend. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Dean.